The RAV4 Hybrid is a complete phenomenon. It outsells every other hybrid SUV by a massive margin. And not only that, while we were sleeping in 2024, this RAV4 became the best-selling vehicle in the United States. The waiting lists at some dealerships stretch for months, and I've spent the week living with this top-of-the-line RAV4 Hybrid Limited, and I think I understand why people are willing to wait. So let's dig into what makes this RAV4 Hybrid Limited so special and whether it deserves to be on the top of your shopping list. What's it like? Buckle up, my friends. Let's go for a drive. I'm your host, Brian Makse, racer, lover of driving fast, fun things. And on this channel, you get reviews for drivers from drivers. Now, one of the things that puzzles me is how this RAV4 went from humble crossover to the best-selling vehicle in this part of the world. That's pretty wild. And before we get into what this is like to drive, let's have a look at it in a little more depth. The RAV4 isn't just a crossover, it's a massive success, and it even outsells the perennial sales chart topper, the Ford F-150. This is a hybrid, so it starts with a 2.5-liter naturally aspirated four-cylinder under the hood that produces 118 horsepower and 149 pounds of torque. There's a second motor that functions primarily as a starter generator, and then there's a third electric motor that powers the rear wheels with 54 horsepower and 89 pounds of torque. Together, these motors have a combined system output of 219 horsepower and 221 pounds of torque. The transmission is one of these very modern electronically controlled CVTs. It is all-wheel drive with that dedicated electric motor at the rear. Steering's electrically assisted, suspension's based around McPherson struts at the front, multi-link at the rear. Wheels and tires are 18s. Towing capacity is a modest 1,750 pounds. Curb weight of this RAV4 Hybrid is 3,800 pounds, and promised combined mileage is, get this, 40 miles per gallon, so we'll see how that goes. Attention to detail isn't just limited to automotive design. I've actually been testing this extra smart wallet for these last several reviews, and the attention to detail is remarkable. The aluminum card case has this incredibly satisfying ejection mechanism. One click and your cards are perfectly fanned for easy access. It's the kind of thoughtful design that makes daily interactions more enjoyable. The Finder card is engineering brilliance as far as I'm concerned. Ultra thin and gives you global tracking through your phone. For somebody constantly moving between vehicles and locations, this peace of mind is invaluable. Extra's anniversary sale continues with 30% off, but for you guys, my viewers, you get up to 40% off with the code BrianMakse. Just go to partner.extra.com/BrianMakse. Quality craftsmanship deserves recognition, whether it's an everyday carry wallet or cars. Now, back to your regularly scheduled episode. We've driven our share of RAV4s on this channel, and not much has changed on the inside. The ergonomics are straightforward, seating position straightforward, visibility straightforward, lots of room on the inside. Starting with the fundamental seating position, can't complain. You're seated high off the road, decent hip point in terms of getting in and out of this RAV4, and I'm sure that's one of the key selling features of this RAV4. It's very easy to get in and out of this thing. But the seat is supportive, it's comfortable. In this trim, it's heated and cooled as well. Basic adjustments on the seat as you'd expect in this segment and at this price point, but there's plenty of adjustability in the seat as well as the steering column to have an effective seating position. So got a great relationship to the steering wheel and to the pedals. The steering wheel, great shape, great size. The interesting thing here is I have the heated steering wheel on at the moment, and the heating zones are here at the 9 and 3 positions where your hands are supposed to be on the steering wheel, not 10 and 2, not Vin Diesel style, but here at 9 and 3. Who knew? The instrument cluster is digital. It's very straightforward, visible in most lighting situations. Sometimes there's a little extra glare on that screen. Obviously no heads-up display in a RAV4, and that's okay. This instrumentation gives you all the information you need. Ergonomics, very straightforward. There's absolutely no learning curve whatsoever if you're coming from something else into a RAV4. Very easy to live with this and understand what everything does in here. The infotainment screen pops out of the dash, as some vehicles do. It is Toyota's latest system. It is also very straightforward. I use it on wireless CarPlay. There is a wireless phone charger here that thankfully is switchable, and of course easy to have your phone there, and also save the manuals, my friends, but very easy to keep your phone there. You can use this on wired CarPlay. I suppose Android Auto is a thing here as well, but I'm not an Android user, so can't really comment. In terms of visibility, that is actually a highlight here, and this one is equipped with Toyota's rear view camera mirror, and I love these things for other reasons. It's a fantastic situation because you've got a wider field of view than this mirror can present. And of course, we know on this channel, if you have your 3 mirrors positioned properly, blind spots aren't real. Over the years, the RAV4 has grown a little bit, so it is very spacious in here. Lots of headroom, lots of room here for you and your front seat passenger, lots of room in that second row as well. And under the hatch, there's a generous amount of room. I actually have a bunch of stuff there right now. It's been a busy week, and there's an abundance of space under the hatch. With this interior, I think Toyota's interior designers actually spent time sitting inside the RAV4 because everything just kind of makes sense. There are physical controls for heating and cooling and a real volume knob, which leads me to believe that Toyota actually employs people who drive cars in the real world. It's quick enough. This will do 0 to 60 in a couple of ticks over 7 seconds, and that's not bad in the real world. There's a lot more to this story than just a 0 to 60 time. Keep in mind the Prime, or the plug-in hybrid as I think they now call it, is about 2 seconds quicker than this to 60. Top speed's limited to about 115 miles an hour, certainly more than fast enough for a RAV4. You probably don't want to go much faster than that anyway. The best thing about this hybrid drivetrain is the electric motors respond faster than a toddler can spill a freshly opened juice box. But seriously, this is quick in the real world. When you're at any speed beyond a dead stop, say from 10 miles an hour to 40, that's when this is real world quick. The real story is how this hybrid drivetrain works. Yes, it makes a modest amount of power and torque, but it's how well it's integrated that is what makes this RAV4 hybrid so effective and so efficient. Part of that has to do with how responsive the CVT is, or the electronically controlled CVT, and I'm sure some people are going to lecture me in the comments. And the reason is I'm not talking about the technical specifications of this transmission at all. I'm talking about how it reacts to my inputs as a driver. This is not a geared transmission, so what it does is odd things like this. We accelerate and it just holds revs at peak power, rather than a geared transmission climbing through the revs and actually shifting. Most people will not notice this on a day-to-day basis, and more importantly, as I understand, these modern eCVTs from Toyota are basically bulletproof. And yes, there is a sort of manual mode that does mimic gear changes, and it's responsive enough. If that's your thing, you can use it in that way. What is impressive is how responsive the electric motor is at the rear. Because it's an electric motor, it's instantaneously responsive. It's very much unlike a mechanical part-time all-wheel drive system. Really a game changer here, and I think what it does, especially in low grip conditions, gives RAV4 hybrid drivers a lot more confidence when they're on some slippery roads, on some snow, whatever the case is. Yes, you can hear the 4-cylinder from time to time, but they've done a great job of isolating any kind of noise in this RAV4. And of course, every once in a while, you're operating this thing and you are on the electric motors only, and then it is incredibly quiet. Now, we're driving at 40 miles an hour right now, and we're driving purely on electricity. There are 3 drive modes here. There's Eco when you want to hypermile. There's normal when you want to be, well, normal, and then there's sport when you need a little bit of extra responsiveness if the kids are late to school. There's also an EV mode if you want to sneak up silently on some unwitting pedestrians, or at least until the battery gives up after about a half a mile. One of the things that's impressive most of the time is the seamlessness that this RAV4 Hybrid goes from gasoline power to hybrid and back and forth. Only once in a while do you get a little bit of a surprise when that gasoline motor fires up, and that's more often than not when you're sitting at a stop and everything's silent, and then boom, the gas motor fires up and you remember you're driving a hybrid. Because I live in a big city, I appreciate this hold function, so this RAV4 will hold itself on the brake at a stoplight. One of the things I don't appreciate about this is that I've got to switch this function on every single time I start the RAV4.
Did you know that 80% of you are not subscribed? Yes, it's true. 80% of you are not subscribed. I checked the data. So if you like the content on this channel, do me a solid, hit that subscribe button, make sure you like this. And if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. Now back to your regularly scheduled episode.
Now, when it comes to ride and handling, the best way to characterize this suspension is that it is set up to be crowd-pleasing, which means it's reasonably competent and it's fairly comfortable. One of the things I appreciate about the suspension, it does a great job of absorbing and isolating all the road imperfections that we have in this part of the world. This is the end of winter, so the roads are at their worst, and it does a great job of soaking up the bumps. Another thing that's helpful is actually the tire, because we are in some 18s with a taller sidewall. It's not like we have 20-inch wheels on this thing. We've got some 18s, so they've got a taller sidewall, and tires do have an effective spring rate, so they're able to absorb bumps a little bit better than a lower profile tire. Now that's actually a rough railway crossing, and the suspension did a great job of soaking that up. Now we are going to find some corners. What I am going to do is manually control the gearbox. This is a reminder that the shift action is the reverse of a traditional racing sequential gearbox. So to go down, we pull back, and to shift up, we push forward. Doesn't really make any sense to me, but I've got racer's brain, that's for sure. All right, let's have some fun in the corners, shall we? Let's. This isn't bad. You're certainly reminded that you're driving a tall crossover, and the suspension is soaking up the bumps quite well here. Brakes confident, steering is direct, not a lot of feel through the steering wheel, but the steering's well weighted. Transmission does a good job of holding the virtual gears, and yeah, the steering is very clear in terms of changing direction, but yeah, not a lot of feel or feedback's coming through the steering wheel, that's for sure. But brakes, yes, very, very confident, very impressed. And the suspension, great job controlling body and wheel motion and soaking up all the bumps. Very impressive. There's not a lot of secondary motion over some bigger road imperfections, and even though this is a straightforward suspension with conventional dampers, they do a great job of controlling any secondary body movement. Another thing that I like about this RAV4 are the brakes. You've got great feel, lots of power, and your ability to control the attitude of this RAV4 with the brakes with some precision is very impressive. But most importantly, these things stop this RAV4 confidently, and that is your first line of defense when it comes to avoiding a collision. They're so very important, and these brakes do a perfect job here. When it comes to braking and vehicles with electrified drivetrains, there is this blending that has to go on between regenerative braking and then brake actuation. And it used to be as predictable as a toddler's mood swings, but with this 5th generation hybrid tech and this braking system, Toyota has that completely sorted here. And when it comes to ride and handling, I do think that RAV4 buyers are looking for something that hits that sweet spot between I feel connected to the road and I don't need to feel every crack and pebble on the road. And Toyota has nailed that here with the suspension setup. Overall, the dynamics in this RAV4 are exactly what you want. They're predictable, safe, and give you the confidence that you need. It's not trying to be a sports car, much in the same way I'm not trying to fit into my high school jeans. It knows what its purpose is, and it does a great job doing it. How do you spec yours? Well, there are some considerations. What you are looking at is a 2025 RAV4 Hybrid Limited. This is the top trim. This is blueprint paint. On the inside, you Americans call it nutmeg. Here in Canada, we're a little bit more boring. We call it beige. Product planning is a little bit different in Canada and the US. In Canada, the Limited comes one way. In the US, this is a Limited with the advanced tech package and the weather package and the digital rear view mirror, basically everything but the panoramic roof. Base price in the US is $40,605, and as tested, this is $42,645. In Canada, base price and as tested is one and the same. It's $47,525, and these prices are before freight, fees, taxes, etc. Unlike the German luxury crossovers where the base price is just a suggestion before the real spending begins, this fully loaded RAV4 Hybrid Limited costs less than a bare bones entry model from those German brands and includes features they'd charge you the price of a decent weekend getaway to add. Now, in terms of speccing yours, there are plenty of trims to consider, but with this Limited, this one has all of the features and all of the luxuries that I appreciate. And after a week in this RAV4 Hybrid Limited, I've definitely come to appreciate all of those. Now, in terms of this color combination, this is fantastic. What doesn't necessarily come out is that this blueprint paint is a little bit purple in certain lights. I don't know if it's coming through on the camera, but this is a stunning color. And speaking of stunning, everybody who's seen this up close loves this color combination, and I really understand why. Really well done, Toyota, for making this kind of color combination available, because in this part of the world, all I see are boring whites, grays, and blacks. My verdict, well, going into this test, I was asking myself a question. What's the reason behind this RAV4's dominance? Turns out it's not any one thing, but it is the absence of compromise. The performance is reasonably satisfying, and that has to do with the instant torque of the electric motors. There's evidence of Toyota quality everywhere. The tech feels modern without being frustrating. And then it ticks those three most important boxes for crossover buyers. It's got all of Toyota's safety systems, but then it's got Toyota's reputation for reliability and great resale value. Quick interruption for fuel consumption. Been driving this in the city, in the country, and on the highway, and I can't seem to do any worse than about 29 miles per gallon or 8.2 liters per 100 kilometers for my Canadian friends. I'd love to hear from RAV4 Hybrid owners and understand what your real-world mileage is like. Mine is not representative of normal people or normal driving, so please let me know in the comments. Is it perfect? No, and there are a couple of things I don't like here that we discussed already. The sales numbers don't lie. This is the best-selling vehicle in the United States and in Canada. It outsells every truck, it outsells every car, and it seems like Toyota has nailed the sweet spot for crossovers. While other car makers are trying to figure out how to make their hybrids work like they're not science experiments, Toyota's on their 5th generation of this tech. It's like they've got a PhD in hybrid drivetrains while other car makers are still trying to master Hybrid 101. With this RAV4 Hybrid, they didn't reinvent the crossover. It's that Toyota just executes it better than everyone else. And if anything, that might just be Toyota's superpower. Thanks for hanging out with me today and having a look at this 2025 Toyota RAV4 Hybrid Limited. Hope you liked this episode, and if you did, you're not new, you know what to do. Smash the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, like this, and as always, sharing is caring, so please share this with your friends, especially on Reddit, because on Reddit, they really need to see reviews for drivers from drivers. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch, and Toyota still makes some awesome manuals. Thanks, Toyota. Anyway, thanks again for watching. We'll see you again next time. And remember, cars don't understeer by themselves, not even Toyota RAV4s. And since you've hung around this long, we'll have a look at a completely different take on a Toyota hybrid crossover, the Crown Signia. I think you might appreciate that. Thanks for watching. See you again next time.